What if I told you there is a secret method to finding out exactly how much you are going to sell your property for before you even buy it, and without needing to even have any comps readily available? This one simple strategy on how to test market interest will determine your success as a land flipper, and it's crucial for anyone to be good at. So let's start with why comps aren't always enough. And I mean, let's just start with a simple reality check. You could have 3 properties listed for $25,000 in a certain subdivision, but at the end of the day, if they're not selling and they've been on market for 200 days, it's honestly just not really good comparison. Now, on the other hand, you might have, a couple properties that had sold 3 or 5 years ago. That's also not really as reliable as a comp, because that was such a long time ago. You don't know if the subdivision got better or has more issues that lower property values. But regardless, this one method helps solve all of those problems. And what testing your market interest actually means is essentially you're going to do a fake listing. And so I wouldn't recommend using Craigslist. It's literally so bad. It just takes down your listings for no reason. I would stick primarily just to Facebook Marketplace, but you're essentially doing like a soft launch on the property, and you can do this before you even own the property. So you go and you write a listing with good photos that you got on top of all the parcel info that would be necessary to make a good listing, and on top of that you have the price that you want to test the market with. So you have your parcel, and let's say it's $20,000, and you only get maybe 1 or 2 messages in 2 days. That tells you something right there that you need to change something up. Now, let's say you go and you relist it for $15,000 and your phone starts blowing up. You're getting maybe 10 to 20 messages per day. Then you just found your zone, and honestly, you can even try repricing it a bit higher in the middle at maybe like 17.5. Now, the best way to use this method is honestly just when comps are hard to find. Usually comping is pretty reliable, but if you have comps that are just really outdated or they're kind of just fishy for some reason, and you're not exactly sure how your buyer pool is going to react to the property you're buying, just throw up a fake listing. That's the best time to use it. Now, let's say you do have good comps, but you just have a really weird parcel, like the shape is weird, or it's kind of sloped, or there's just really something weird with the parcel, and you aren't sure how it really compares to the other comps. That is also a good time to do a fake listing. And it's pretty simple, and you do this because you don't want to guess on what your property is going to sell for, because you're essentially gambling your margin at that point. And at the end of the day, this method beats, you buying a property and having it listed for 6 months with not really getting any responses, just for you to have to go and break even because maybe there's something wrong with the property, or the comps that you had just wasn't reliable. Now, even when you have comps, this is still probably a good thing to do if you have the time, because let's say that your comps are super reliable and they line up pretty good with the parcel that you have in our contract, but again, you list your parcel for maybe $25,000 and you're not really getting responses for it. That tells you right there your property is probably not going to sell, and even up to this point you did everything right with doing your comps, making a good offer, but for some reason people just aren't biting on that price. It is what it is, but you have to lower it. Now, on the other hand, if your comps are showing $25,000 and you put your property at exactly $25,000, what you might find is you're getting a ton of market interest and too many inquiries, and you actually have to raise your price higher than originally what you thought because you're getting too much interest. Now, in the case that does happen, this happens to us all the time, to be honest. What we do, we just raise the price. People are going to get mad at you, especially if they texted you early. So from that point, you kind of have 2 options. You can honor that price that you had originally listed it for just because they had texted you very quickly. Or I usually just tell people that I had gone in contact with a realtor and they gave me a better price estimate for the property. So I just apologize, and that's pretty much it. At the end of the day, it's your choice whether you want to sell it for a certain price or not. So you shouldn't be, too upset when people kind of get mad at you for changing it up on them. And I want to give you guys a quick story of something recently that happened to Francis and I, like very recently. And this is probably our best example of having to use this method. But essentially, we ran into a deal on accident. I had called a neighbor because I was actually trying to kind of pitch a nearby property that we had to see if it's something he would be interested in buying. But he had essentially told me he's actually looking to sell his property there. And his property, it was 0.38 acres. He only wanted $2,000 for it, and there was like an old trailer home on it. And it also had all utilities. He just wasn't really sure of the condition of the property. He just didn't like that he was paying taxes on it. And on top of that, he just kind of wanted some quick money. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And right off the top of my head, I thought it was a good price over the phone. So I went to go do some research on it. And I got some pictures from the neighbor because it didn't have a Google Maps Street View. And I saw that the old trailer home didn't actually look like it was in bad condition. It was also in a very cleared out sort of path going into the property. So it was nice in that sense. And it also had a gate. So it was a super weird property. And I figured some people might not really like it because there was an old mobile home on it in really bad condition. But actually, to my surprise, it was very different. And that's why I say, don't rely on guessing, rely on what the market is telling you. I figured if this guy wants $2,000 for it, after closing costs, we're paying $3,000 for it in total. But we just didn't really know what we were going to sell it for. This guy knew that we were probably going to end up double closing on the property, but he didn't really care just as long as he got his quick money. So I thought, maybe I'll list it for $8,000 and we'll just net $5,000 after closing costs, and we'll make the seller pay for closing costs on that end. But nonetheless, I was actually completely wrong. Francis said, hey, just try 13, start high, and we'll go lower if we need to. And I'm glad we had started it at 13 instead of 8 because I actually got a record amount of texts ever on any listing. I got literally 30 in 1 hour. In the second hour, it was the same thing. It was super ridiculous. I literally just couldn't put my phone down because I was getting so many texts. And by the second hour, I ended up raising the price to 16. I was still getting a lot of interest. And again, I probably could have raised it more because I was still getting a ton of interest. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to double close on this quickly and find a buyer for that. So we ended up finding a buyer on day 4. And I'll plop some pictures up on the screen of how many clicks we got. But we ended up finding a buyer for it for $16,000, and they're paying all closing costs at the title company on top of that. So after we pay our side of closing costs with the original seller, we're going to spend about $3,000 total, and we're going to net $13,000 in profit. And the point I'm really trying to make here is that if I didn't go and raise my price because I realized I was getting so much interest, we would have found a buyer for $13,000 instead of $16,000, and that would have costed us an extra $3,000 of profit. So, what to look for during your market interest test? The most important one is honestly just your volume of inbound messages, because if you're getting 30 in your first hour, that's way too much. You'll notice some of your listings might only get 7 a day, and I feel like that's a good number. Your property's still going to sell relatively well with 7 texts per day. But yeah, if you're getting too much, I would say that's sort of a sweet spot, and just keep increasing the price until you get to that point. And I would say the second type of thing that you want to look for is really just the questions you're getting asked. And that's because if everyone is asking you a very similar question, that probably means that something in your listing probably isn't very clear, and it's probably a good idea to go and edit your listing just to clear up any issues that might prevent someone from actually messaging you in the first place. On top of that, the better your listing gets, the more you can actually sell a property for. It's sort of just value on top of your marketing that can help you sell for a higher price. So by looking out for those things, you can sort of start to get some results and see where you need to adjust. But at the end of the day, the best pricing for your land comes from data and demand, not just emotion or past comps that maybe aren't really relevant now. So how to adjust your listing based on your results. If you're getting no texts or anything, you're going to have to lower your price, or you're going to have to improve your marketing to add value to the price that you're listed at. Now, if you're getting way too many responses, on the other hand, raise your price, and the questions that people are asking you about the property, try to answer those better in your listing to justify a higher price to anyone else coming in and looking at your listing. We've had both happen to us. We've raised prices, a couple days in because we were getting too many messages and had to deal with a couple angry people that got a little mad at us. But we've also had to cut pricing by, 10-20% because we just weren't getting enough demand on the price that we thought it would sell for. At the end of the day, it's business. You just got to stay flexible and adhere to demand. Just like any sort of stock that you buy, if people are buying it, the price is going to go up, and if people are selling it, it's going to crash. So to wrap this up, just a quick few takeaways. Don't always rely on comps. Use them to get an idea, but don't worship them because things have to change sometimes. Secondly, you want to test your market early. You can really start testing the market as soon as you agree to the price with the homeowner and they signed a purchase agreement. Usually I'll try to get a fake listing up within, the first couple days or first week of getting the property under contract, just because I want a really good idea of what my margin is before I actually go through with the deal and end up sending money to the homeowner. On top of that, sometimes you get lucky and you have a buyer lined up before you even close on the property, and it results in a very quick flip. Thirdly, just use Facebook Marketplace for all your fake listing needs. I found it's the best platform, and you shouldn't really have to go anywhere else, to be honest. Fourthly, just let the market tell you exactly what it wants. Don't try to force a price just because you think your comps say so or because you need to hit a certain number. At the end of the day, sometimes you have to suffer the consequences and lower the price of a property unexpectedly, and that happens. It's all part of the game. Just keep your head up and don't worry about it. And lastly, if demand is too high, raise your price, and if demand is too low, lower it. Just to keep it very simple. At the end of the day, this is really how you sell land quickly and profitably. It's not about just guessing, but actually listening to your market buyer interest. So guys, if you got actual value from this, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment anything that you want tips on. If you have like a specific topic or anything that you want Francis or I to cover. And as always, I guess just follow us on like Instagram or, TikTok at mmc-land. And I hope you guys have a nice day and peace out.